Well, I think just like anything new that comes around, look, it was my reaction too the first time I saw it. I thought, it was dismissal, you know, this is a scam, this is not going to make it. I think that's a very natural first reaction for people to have, and Bitcoin, let's be for real, it's not the easiest thing to explain. It's rather arcane, and it's a very different concept of money from what we've been raised with. And money to us is something that now is something that's deeply ingrained in our subconscious. It is something that has been forming throughout hundreds and hundreds of years, and the way that we use it now, the way we understand it now, is a very deeply ingrained thing in our minds. And you have this thing coming along called Bitcoin, which is completely different, and that's not an easy, it's not an easy thing to get your mind around. It's not an easy concept to grasp. So I think a lot of people, just their first reaction is, and it's a natural reaction, this is a scam, this isn't real, this can't be real, because this is not, I know what money is, I've been raised with money, I understand it, this is not money. I think that's a very natural first reaction, and I think a lot of people are going to have that. The issue becomes, and again it gets into some things you were asking me about education, about people's understanding of it. The whole thing is very much a process. Whether it gets there or not, society will decide. But I think people, I think their first reaction is not a terrible one. I think it's a natural one. Well, look, I mean, let's not kid ourselves. I mean, this was dreamed up by this came out of a group of people who were mainly libertarian, anarchist types, and there is a very strong element of taking power out of the hands of the powerful and giving it to the people. That threatens a lot of entrenched interests. It just does. And whether Bitcoin is a valuable thing as a utility, people in their daily lives go on Overstock, go on Expedia, use it. It's a tool. It works. That's fine. But there is a strong element in this of let's take down the system. So the people who are in the system, who have an entrenched interest in that system, they are going to react rather violently to it, and a lot of them will say, ban this. This can't be good for us. We got to get rid of this. I don't think they, do I think that they're going to ban it out of existence? I don't think so. I don't think that that's really the prevailing attitude. I think that's more and more becoming a minority opinion. I don't think people want to ban it out of existence anymore. I don't think people want to regulate it to the point that it is completely ineffective and unusable. I don't think that is going to happen. And I think even if they did, and again it gets to what do you call success, you can ban people from using Bitcoin as much as you want, and it's just going to migrate to places where you can't reach it. And that's a huge issue right now. It's one thing to say we need laws, but in a digital age, where do those laws reach? How far can those laws go? And are there people that can go to places where they can evade those laws no matter what? And yes, there are. There are places where you can evade those laws no matter what. So no matter how harsh the regulatory regime got, and I don't think it is going to get there, they could hamper Bitcoin, but I don't think that they could destroy Bitcoin. Well, how do I think? I think banks, I think Wall Street is still in very early stages of kind of getting Bitcoin. And if there's anybody who's a spokesman for Wall Street, it's Jamie Dimon. He was interviewed, he was at Davos, the big economic forum in Switzerland in January. They asked him about it, and he totally dismissed it. He said it's a terrible store of value, it can be easily replicated, it's not going to last. When the regulations hit it, the price advantage that they have over us, because our costs are higher because we have all the regulations. When those regulations hit it, the cost advantage will disappear. He totally dismissed it. And that is probably as official a statement as there is on Wall Street. But there's, this is what we hear. There aren't a lot of people coming out and saying it, but it seems like there is interest in it on Wall Street. It seems like they're understanding again that this is a thing we have to take seriously. Whether they see that as something that is a threat to their business model, or whether they see that as something that could help their business model, again, they're going to have to work that out. They're going to have to figure that out. That's going to be decided person by person. But I think Wall Street is finally understanding that this is a thing, and there are a couple of analysts out there that are writing about it and talking about it a lot. Gil Luria at Wedbush is one. Nick Colas at Convergix is another. You have analysts who are starting to take this seriously and write about it seriously. but there's still a very small group of them. So there's no real official reaction to Bitcoin from Wall Street, but I do think you are starting to see a lot of interest. You are starting to see products, the kinds of products that Wall Street has for assets, for stocks, for bonds, the sort of swaps, the sort of shorting products, derivatives. You're starting to see those get made, get created, not on Wall Street, outside of Wall Street. And when you think about Wall Street, we keep saying Wall Street, right? Well, Wall Street is just a metonym for the financial industry. Nothing really happens on Wall Street anymore. With Bitcoin, you're going to see that metonym taken to an even further divide. You're going to see people come in and make these products that Wall Street traditionally made for Bitcoin. And at least initially, you're going to have these two different camps. You're going to have the Bitcoin financial world and you're going to have the financial world. How those two mesh is going to be a very interesting story. I think people's understanding of money has gotten to the point where, and again, it kind of gets to my car analogy. It's gotten to the point where they don't need to understand it. They know it works. They know they have dollars in their pocket. They know they can go spend those dollars. They know they have credit cards. They know the credit cards work. They know they can get things in exchange for cash and credit. They don't need to understand how money works anymore. I think one of the most interesting things about Bitcoin, whether or not it becomes a phenomenon, whether or not it becomes a mainstream product, is I really think once you start exploring it, it forces you to step back and start asking yourself the question, what is money? What is this thing? And I think that's actually probably one of the most valuable things right now that Bitcoin can do is it really forces people to step back and start asking, what is money? How does it create it? Why am I using this dollar bill? What does this dollar bill mean? Why do I let the Federal Reserve create dollars? Why do I let the banks control my money? All these questions that you never had to ask before, you start asking yourself. And I think that actually at this point is one of the most interesting aspects to Bitcoin. Well, I don't think the federal government has taken away power from the people. The people gave the federal government that power. I mean, over the centuries, we have given the federal government power to do things in our name. Whether that power has been abused or not, you can argue that point. Sometimes certain specific instances, yes, of course, it's been abused. You look at the dollar, you look at it since Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard, what has happened to it? Has its value been inflated away? Yes, absolutely. Is a dollar worth what it was when I was born? Which we don't need to go into when I was born actually, but has it lost a lot of purchasing power since then? Yes, of course it has. Has that been mismanagement? That's a question for people to argue, and people will come down on either side of that. But I don't think the federal government has taken power from people. I think people have given the federal government power. But again, I think what Bitcoin starts to do is it starts to force you to ask questions about fundamental relationships that you have with the institutions that really do have a major influence on your life. And I think that's a very good thing. Is there something inherently wrong with Wall Street? Yeah, it's an insider's game. I mean, without a doubt, it is an insider's game. And I think my personal opinion is I think the worst thing about Wall Street is that over the last 30 or 40 years probably, a lot of people have been sold on this idea that you can do what the guys on Wall Street do. You can make the money that the guys on Wall Street are making. Investing in stocks is easy. Look, here's a show about it. Here's a program about it. Just give me this X amount of money and I can turn it into this for you. Wall Street's a very difficult place to make money. You have to know what you're doing. You have to be a professional. You have to be inside. If you are not, and I'm about to badly quote Wall Street, the movie, which I won't do, we'll stop here, but it is not an easy place to make money, and I think people have been sold on the fact that it is an easy place to make money, and a lot of people have lost a lot of money because they thought, well, all I have to do is stick money into my mutual fund and my retirement will be set. No, it's not that easy. It is simply not that easy, and the worst thing is that we have stopped becoming a nation of savers because of that, because we were sold on this idea that it's very easy to get rich and have your retirement set, and it is not easy to get rich and have your retirement set. Wall Street is a very difficult place to make money, and a lot of people have been sold this idea that it was easy for them, and I don't think it is. And I actually think that's the biggest problem with Wall Street. not just personal debt, not just corporate debt, but government debt. I mean, you have to look at those all together as one big thing. That is the wealth. When you talk about the wealth of the nation, what is the wealth of the nation? Well, the wealth of the nation is a gigantic hole of money that we owe to the rest of the world that is never going to be paid back. I do think our fiscal policies, our monetary policies have created a nation of debtors. I think you look at personal debt, I mean, you have to look at debt. If you want to talk about the wealth of the nation, you have to look at the debt of the nation. And we have a lot of debt that is effectively never going to be paid back. It keeps getting rolled over. The only reason that keeps going is because we can service the debt. Yes, we have a lot of debt. We also happen to have a lot of money. We also happen to have a lot of assets. I mean, the debt is measurable. The collective wealth of the country is immeasurable. I mean, if you're talking about, I'm talking about specific things. The value of a warship, the value of Mount Rushmore, the value of the documents down in Washington. The collective wealth of the nation outweighs the collective debt of the nation, and so we are able to keep issuing debt. We are able to keep living without having to be a nation of savers. When we can't service that debt, when you get into problems with that, when the debt becomes too great, this is what you saw in the housing bubble. We were taking on a lot of debt to buy housing because we could service that debt. As soon as people could not service the debt, as soon as people had taken on mortgages that they could not pay anymore, the interest rates were set, things got out of whack, everything got pulled back. That's going, as long as we're a nation of debtors, as long as we have all this debt, you are going to have those issues. What you need is, you need to be able to service the debt. As long as we can service the debt, we can keep issuing the debt. If we can't service the debt anymore, we're going to have a lot of problems. I want to think that New York City will keep being the center of the financial world. I grew up across the river in New Jersey. I'm a local boy. Obviously, one of the things we're proud about is Wall Street. I want to think that Wall Street will keep being the financial center of the world. But I think Wall Street has become an idea more than a physical place. It's just, there's too much growth in the world. I mean, there are too many people who are not in the United States anymore. Finance is going to go to help people where they are. So will Wall Street be a center of the financial world? Yes, I think it will always be a center of the financial world. Will it be the center of the financial world? You can make the argument that it's not the center of the financial world now. So that, you know, as the emerging markets keep developing, as China keeps developing, Japan keeps developing, as Asia comes of age, you are going to see money go to the places where it can do the most good, where it has the most value, the most demand for it. And I think Wall Street's influence is, sadly to say, I think Wall Street's influence is probably going to continue to diminish.